This podcast is a production of Harbor City Church, Winthrop, Massachusetts. Join us in person every Sunday at 10 a.m. For more information, visit our website at harborcitychurch.net or any of our social media links in the description of this episode. Thanks for listening.
We've been looking in a series of messages called Stories. That's what we've been looking at. And how that Jesus, he was a master at this. He would use stories to emphasize a point or make a point. And this isn't like unique with Jesus, because we see the prophets doing that throughout the Old Testament as well. And it's just something that Jesus, he was just so good at it. He would take what the prophets their parables or their stories that they would tell, and he had like a twist to it, and he'd kind of he'd invert it or turn it upside down. And it's interesting how stories connect with us. And we've talked about this before. I can have 3 points. You're not going to remember any of my 3 points. I get that. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I'm fine. But if I tell a story, you know what people stop me about? We go outside and they go, that story you told. That's what they remember. And so that's why Jesus uses stories, because there's something about a story that sticks with us. And we can take it home and think about it, meditate on it, chew on it a little bit, because a story sticks with us for a while. And instead of me coming up and giving a doctrinal thesis statement, y'all are going to remember that, but you remember a story, and Jesus knew that. And so we've been looking at some stories that Jesus told. But in order to tell the story that Jesus told this morning, I've got to get you guys to turn to the Old Testament. So if you've got a copy of God's Word, just open it up, or if you have your copy that you turn on, hit the button and turn it on. And then and I want you to look in the book of Isaiah. Now, I've read this about 4 weeks ago, but it's been 4 weeks. Some of you don't remember that. And so we're going to read it again, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, and then we're going to jump to Matthew and read a parable of Jesus, a story of Jesus. So Isaiah chapter 5, verse 1. Let me sing for my beloved my love song concerning his vineyard. My beloved had a vineyard on a very fertile hill, and it's so Isaiah is speaking, and who's his beloved? He's talking about the Lord. God is his beloved. And so he says, my beloved had a vineyard on a very fertile hill. I want y'all to picture this vineyard and what this vineyard master, this owner, is doing. He has this vineyard, and it's in a great spot. It's in one of the best locations you can have. It's on a fertile hill. That's what you want. And then he goes the extra mile. He dug it and cleared it of stones, plows it up, removes all the debris, clears it of stones. Think about the time he's investing in this vineyard. But he didn't just do that. He planted it with the very choice vines. And he went a step farther. He built a watchtower in the midst of it. I looked up these watchtowers, and they were these stone towers that would protect this vineyard or the garden that would be planted. And so he builds this watchtower in the midst of it. He wants its protection. Then he hewed out a wine vat in it. And so to process the grapes, once the vineyard produces grapes, he wants to have a place to process those grapes, because he's expecting, what's he expecting? He's expecting a harvest. I mean, you're not going to plant a vineyard if you don't expect a harvest. That's what he's wanting. He's looking forward to this harvest, so he's preparing himself for this harvest of grapes. And so he hewed out a wine vat in it, and he looked for it to yield grapes. Of course, that's what you would do. I want you to notice what it says, but it yielded wild grapes. Now, it's interesting, that word wild means, literally, it's rotten grapes. And the word literally means stinky. It yielded stinky grapes. And it's interesting that when you read that, it's not that he grew some grapes and he let them sit on the vine too long and they became rotten or they became stinky. It says that this vine yielded, when they came forth, they were already stinky. They were already rotten. It yielded rotten fruit. And then he says this in verse 3, and now, O inhabitants of Jerusalem and men of Judah, judge between me and my vineyard. What more was there to do for my vineyard that I've not already done? He said, I went the extra mile. I prepared, I planned, and I did everything the way I was supposed to do it. And so what more could I have done? When I looked for it to yield grapes, why did it yield stinky grapes, wild grapes, rotten grapes? And now I'll tell you what I'm going to do to my vineyard. I will remove its hedge, and it shall be devoured. I will break down its wall, and it shall be trampled down. I will make it a waste. It shall not be pruned or hoed, and briars and thorns shall grow up. I will also command the clouds that they rain no rain upon it. For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah are his pleasant planting. And he looked for justice, but behold, bloodshed. For righteousness, but behold, an outcry. It's a little poem there at the end. What was he looking for? He was looking for good grapes. And so what are the grapes? When you read this, you kind of meditate on it and think about it. Oh, he was looking for good grapes, but he found rotten grapes. And then so in the end of this, he writes this little poem. It's a beautiful little poem, and it also rhymes. It's a poem that rhymes. And you don't get that because we don't speak or read Hebrew, but it's a rhyming little poem. And he says that he looked for justice, a good grape, but that's not what he found. When he looked for justice, he didn't find justice, he found bloodshed. And he looked for righteousness. That's what he was looking for. That was a good grape, but what he found was a stinky grape. It was an outcry. And so the Greek word, we've got it up here, it's mishpat. Mishpat, that's justice. I'm looking for mishpat, but that's not what I found. Look at what I found. I found mishpah. You see what he's saying? I looked for mishpat, but I found mishpah. I think the actual way you say that is, and it works great this time of year because everybody's got allergies, and so you got to clear your throat when you say it. It's mishpah, pah, like that. And so here's what the Lord's saying. Here's what I'm searching for is mishpat, but I found mishpah. Do you see what he's saying? And then don't you notice what he said? He was looking for righteousness, but what he found was an outcry. And it literally means the cries of the oppressed. So there's people who are being oppressed, and they're crying out. And so he looks for tzedakah, and so here's the word tzedakah, righteousness, but that's not what he found. He found se'akah. What's the difference between righteousness and goodness and righteousness and a people being oppressed and crying out? Just one little Hebrew letter. You see that? There's not that much difference. Hey, see how close every one of us is from falling away from righteousness and falling into this trap of sin and having people cry out because of sin. And so I looked for tzedakah, but I found se'akah. And so it's interesting. It's a little rhyming poem. If you were Hebrew, you would really be impressed right now. I'm just telling you. And the reason why you're not is because we don't read that language. And so it's a difficult message for Isaiah to give. Isaiah had to give this message to the people. Isaiah believed, and he was also accusing the leaders of the people of Israel because they had so squandered their responsibility. They so squandered their opportunity that God had given them to be a light to the nations. And so Isaiah is going in and he's giving this message about, in this parable, this story about a man who owns a vineyard, and he did everything to protect it and prepare this vineyard, but what it gave was not what he was looking for. He was looking for justice, and it gave injustice. It was unrighteousness. He was looking for righteousness, and it gave the cries of the oppressed. He was looking for justice, and it gave bloodshed. And these people, Isaiah said, he's talking to people that he loves. He's one of them. And so he's a prophet sent to the people of Israel, and he's saying that you've so squandered your responsibility and opportunity to be this light to the nations, to be a city on a hill. You forfeited your opportunity, and now time is up. Game over. That's his message to the people of Israel. Judgment day was coming. And his judgment day that he's talking about is another people group, another nation coming in and overthrowing them and leading them into captivity. And so Isaiah is well known by politicians and kings, and he's wanting to communicate this message because it's so vitally important message. He's wanting to communicate that message in every way possible because it's so important. And he's saying that God comes to this vineyard looking for fruit, looking for grapes. And what are the grapes? They're justice, and he looked for righteousness. And the vineyard owner did everything to prepare. The vineyard owner's not lazy. The vineyard owner didn't cut corners. He didn't take any shortcuts. He did everything that he could to ensure a good crop, to ensure there's justice or there's righteousness. And so, I want you to fast forward now. This is in the Old Testament in Isaiah. Now, picture this. It's the week before Jesus goes to the cross. Jesus makes this triumphant entry into Jerusalem. This is on Palm Sunday. He had entered in Jerusalem. People have sung Hosanna to him. They've had their palm branches. They're pumped up. They're excited. He's got people that are behind him and excited about him because he comes in like a king. And coming in like a king, he's disrupting everything. Everything. I mean, how dare he? Acting like he's in charge. We're in charge. That's what the leaders of Israel were thinking. That was on their heart. That was on their mind. How dare he come in like this, like he is in charge, because we're in charge. How dare he think that he has authority? We're the ones that have authority. So I want you to think about what they're going through on this week as well. And then Matthew chapter 21, verse 12, it says, Jesus entered the temple, drove out all who sold and bought in the temple, and he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons. And he said to them, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you make it a den of robbers." And what he's doing, he's quoting from Isaiah chapter 56. I'm convinced that Isaiah was Jesus' favorite book in the Old Testament. He quotes from it all the time. Isaiah chapter 56, and he's quoting that verse from Isaiah. And he does. He creates quite a stir. He turns over the tables, and they confront him and question him, and he answers in 3 parables. There's 3 parables that he tells. The first is what Don just read to us just a moment ago. A father asks a son, he's got 2 sons, and he asks both sons to go into the vineyard, and the one son says, "Yeah, I'll go," but he doesn't go. He sits on the couch and plays video games. That's all he's doing. He's like, "I'm not going to go work. I said I would, but I'm not going to." The other son says, "No, I'm not going," but I guess he looks at his brother and thinks, "Well, I don't want to sit on the couch and play video games. What would Dad think of that?" And so he said, "I'm not going to go," but he ends up thinking, "I don't want to be like that." And so he goes and he works in the vineyard. And so come on, guys. Y'all see the vineyard? See what Jesus is doing? And then Jesus poses this question, which son did the will of the Father? And they're like, well, the one who said he wouldn't do it, but ended up going. That's the son who did it. And Jesus is like, yeah, you leaders are like the other son who said you would, and all you're doing is sitting on the couch playing video games. You didn't do anything. But you said that you would. You are the spiritual leaders of Israel. And you should have led the people of Israel into this new kingdom, but you've not done that. And so, a couple of things I want us to look at. Number 1, the vineyard. Are y'all ready to see the vineyard? Here it is. Verse number 33, the vineyard. He says, listen to this other parable I'm going to tell you. I just think that's so cool. He says, hear another parable. What he's saying is, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a parable. I'm going to tell you a story. There was a master of a house who planted a vineyard. And he put a fence around it. And he dug a wine press in it and built a watchtower, a tower. Come on. He copied and pasted from Isaiah And he's telling the story. And so every one of the, who is he speaking to? He's speaking to the scribes and the Pharisees. He's not talking to his disciples right now. It's the scribes and the Pharisees. That's the one who's come to them. The chief priests have come to them asking questions, and he's responding to their questions. And he starts telling the story of Isaiah chapter 5 that we just read. And they're like, oh, I've heard this one. Ooh, I've heard this one before. I know how this one ends. I know how it goes. And so he tells this parable. And it starts out the exact same way. Do y'all see that? He's just copy and pasting Isaiah chapter 5 because I'm convinced Isaiah is Jesus' favorite book in the Old Testament. And so he's doing Isaiah chapter 5. And he says he's done all this thing, built a tower, and he leased it to tenants and went to another country. And the chief priests are saying, that's not how it goes. Wait a minute, that's not the way the story goes. That's not what Isaiah's parable is about. And Jesus takes the parable and twists it. He turns it upside down. And he says, this man, he leased it to tenants. And he went to another country. And then it came the season for fruit. And so the season for fruit drew near. And he sent his servants to the tenants to get the fruit. And so what this was, it was very common in this day that this would happen. This is a very common story. That it was an investment property. You had an investment property, and you didn't really live there. You lived somewhere else, and you bought a piece of property, and you would hire someone to come in and take care of that property. And so who puts in all of the work? Who puts in the work? Well, it's the people who were hired to come work on the property. But whose fruit is it? Well, it's the guy who owns the property. Y'all see this? All right, I just want to make sure we're there. It said the tenants are there. They're taking care of the property. It's time to harvest this fruit, the grapes. And the tenants look at these servants. The servants come, and the tenants beat one of the servants. They killed another servant, and they stoned another. And so again, the same thing happens. This owner of the vineyard, again, he sent other servants, more than the first. And they did the same to them. They killed them. So the owner is sending, these representatives, these servants to the vineyard. Hey, we need to take our cash inventory. We're going to liquidate these grapes, and we need to do that. We're representing the owner. And instead, the tenants look at the servants and say, yeah, today is not your lucky day. And they kill the servants. It's common. It refers to, there was something that was going on that was so common in that area. There were many hired workers that found themselves in this position, and it's just something they wish they could do. Because really, that's what the majority now of Israel is made up of. What would happen is these wealthy, elite Roman officials would buy up all of this land. They're the Roman elites. They're not even Jewish. Most of them are not even Jewish. And the people that were there were Jewish. They were the Jewish people. And they're on this land that has been owned by their family for generations and generations and generations. They're tracing it all the way back to the book of Joshua when they crossed over the Jordan River and they took the land, they owned the land, and now they're still on it, but they don't own it. It's owned by some wealthy, elite Roman citizen. And they've been hired out to work on their own land that they don't own anymore. Do y'all see what's going on? You kind of put yourself into the position of a first century Jewish person. And Jesus tells this story, and in the back of their mind they go, yeah, I wish I could do that. These people have come in and overthrown us. We're living under Roman occupation. And isn't that a dream of all of ours, to overthrow these occupying forces that are in our country? And so he tells this story about this man that comes in and he buys a piece of property. It's time to reap the harvest. He sends his servants and the tenants, the farmers, revolt and they kill the servants. So he sends more servants. The farmers revolt and they kill those servants. They kill them. And verse 37, finally, he sent his son to them. And the owner says to himself, they'll surely respect my son. And so the son now is sent, not just a servant, but now the son. And the son represents the father. That's what, especially in that day, you send your son, it's like you're going because he is standing in your shoes. He represents your name. And he's more than the servant. He's the son, is the embodiment of the father there physically. And the son, it's interesting, the son, there's a name for the son. A Hebrew name, he would say, he sent his Ben, B-E-N. And so we get the word Benjamin from that. It's the son of so-and-so. We see that in the New Testament as well. So Simon, son of Jonah. We see it read in the New Testament. Simon, Ben, Jonah, or now it's translated Bar Jonah, Simon Bar Jonah. And so Ben in the Old Testament means son. And so here's what I'm going to do, because we're going to do something with this word named Ben in just a little bit. So as I read this, I'm going to just say Ben, and you're going to think, what? Okay, 3 of you are with me. I'm excited for the 3 that are with me. So everybody say Ben. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Ben. And Ben means what? Son. Oh, man, everybody's with me. So finally, he sends his Ben to them. And he says, they will respect my Ben, because the son, the Ben, represents the father. But, verse 38, when the tenants saw the Ben, they said to themselves, this is the heir. Come and let us kill him and have his inheritance. And they took him and they threw him out of the vineyard and they killed him. The father sends the Ben, but the Ben is rejected and he's murdered. And it's super illogical story. Remember, it's a parable. It's not a story to make a lot of sense sometimes. What were these tenants thinking? That this Ben has a money bag and he's carrying his inheritance with him everywhere he goes, and hey, we'll kill him and we'll take his of course not. Or, hey, let's kill him and then the father's going to give us the inheritance. You're tenant farmers. That's not the way it's going to work. So it's a very illogical idea that the tenant farmers have, that let's kill him and take his inheritance. But remember, this is just a story. It's just a parable. Verse 40, Jesus says this. He says, I'm not going to finish the parable. That's what Jesus says. He said, you finish the parable. I've set it up for you, now you finish it. So he says in verse 40, so when the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those tenants? Now you finish the story. And so they are all talking, what would he do to those tenants? And they respond back. They said to him in verse 41, he will put those wretches to a miserable death and let out the vineyard to other tenants who will give him the fruits of their seasons. So these